La da dee do do. La da da da.
What is up? I'm Razz Pitazz. Hope you're having a great day today. So I want to talk about the second week of the Titanfall tech test. And I'm going to admit, I am a bit of a liar. There are two things I lied about. One, I lied about the core gameplay because I simply forgot and I haven't played the original Titanfall in quite a few years. And the second one is that I said I was going to be doing videos on the pilot abilities and the different Titans, and I'm really not going to do that. And I'm not going to do that because I'm going to go over it in this one. And I also don't really feel like doing any other videos for Titanfall 2 at the immediate moment. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So the second round of the tech test was better than the first round of the tech test. They made a few changes. They changed the wall run speed. That was increased. They changed the base movement speed a little bit. That was also increased. I believe they did some weapon tuning and some Titan tuning. And overall, they took feedback from the Titanfall community and they put a little bit into the second round of testing, which is good because that means they're listening. You know, they want they want the people who are testing the game to actually enjoy the game, and that's always a good thing. That shows that this wasn't just for publicity. This wasn't just to raise awareness of the game and to try to pitch sales. I personally felt that there wasn't a whole lot in the tech test, though. There wasn't much different from the first week aside from these minor fixes, and they added one extra map. There were no new abilities from the first one, although they increased the level cap, so we were able to unlock everything without having to pay for it via the credit system, or the merit system, excuse me. But aside from that, there was nothing new, really. And I understand this is a testing period. This is a testing phase. We're not supposed to have half the game available to us because they don't want to spoil everything and just show us everything that they have up front. And I understand that. However, there was so little that was actually new in the second round of testing, and there wasn't a whole lot that was actually changed. I was finally able to unlock the cloak pilot ability. I wasn't able to do that the first weekend because while I did hit the level cap of level 12, I wasn't able to play enough to gather 500 merits and unlock it before I hit the appropriate level. So I ended up playing around with that a little bit this past weekend, and I honestly didn't care for it because the way it's supposed to work is you're pretty much invisible to Titans and you're kind of invisible to pilots. That's how it worked in Titanfall 1. Where pilots could still see you if they were looking out for that kind of thing, and Titans could barely see you at all. However, in Titanfall 2, they changed the way that works. Instead of being somewhat invisible to pilots, you're really just like a white shade, and it looks extremely goofy when you're playing in the game. Because it's incredibly obvious. In fact, you stand out more using cloak to pilots than you would if you just didn't bother using it. And as far as being invisible to Titans, that's honestly just a facade as well. You're not entirely invisible, and in fact it's more of like a shimmer. You'll go in and out of invisibility while a Titan is looking at you, so even if you're using it, a Titan can see you. And in which case it can make an educated guess of your current position and just unload on there, and you're dead. So it didn't do a whole lot. It was trumped immediately by the grappling hook. And the grappling hook definitely took precedence over everything, which I feel is kind of a balance issue. And the reason I feel that it's a balance issue is because of how important it is to have that compared to all the other pilot abilities. For example, the Stim Pack made a return, and the Stim Pack was extremely powerful in Titanfall 1. Because of the healing and the speed boost, and because everyone was already super fast, you going even faster made it extremely difficult to hit you. In this one, while it is nice to have, if you take this over the grappling hook, you're at an immediate disadvantage. The reason you're at a disadvantage is because while you are faster, your movement is still predictable. If you have the grappling hook, your movement becomes a little less predictable as you can move in pretty much any direction, be it horizontal, vertical, or anywhere in between. And for some reason, they decided that the holographic pilot needed to make a return. It's better than its initial rendition in Titanfall 1. In this one, it actually, looks like a pilot, and it kind of acts like a pilot. The enemy's team will see it as a pilot because it's highlighted in red, but it's not a pilot. However, again, this does not trump the grappling hook as a pilot ability. If you carry this, you pretty much just substituted a puppet with anything else that is potentially useful. Now, the Pulse Blade could be argued to be an extremely useful ability, and I believe that it is an extremely useful ability. However, I feel that it is completely stunted by a couple factors within the game, such as the time to kill, the movement speed in the game, and basically the grappling hook. All you have to do when you're using the Pulse Blade, or if someone has thrown a Pulse Blade in your direction and you get caught, all you have to do is leave the premises for about 2 seconds and you're good. So the only time this is actually useful is as a last-ditch effort to throw a knife at someone's face, or if you're rocking a shotgun or an SMG, possibly the alternator, and you don't want to go around a corner blind and there happens to actually be someone there. Otherwise, this spot, it can be used with a grappling hook. A grappling hook that can be used literally at any given moment during the game. There is no situational purpose for the grappling hook. That one is all-purpose, and you can use it at any point, and it is considered useful. Now, I'm not going to talk about the pilot kits because those are kind of passive, and they don't affect the gameplay enough to even merit mentioning as far as pros and cons. You use what you're comfortable with, and it will work for you regardless. That's how the pilot kits work, and it's kind of the same thing with the Titan kits, so I don't really need to go over those all that much. The one thing in the pilot kit that does stand out to me, and it did kind of irk me, is the wall hang ability, which in the original Titanfall, everyone had access to. If you were wall running and you held the aim button, then you would immediately just hang onto the wall, and then you could hip fire anywhere. And in this one, you have to actually take up a slot to be able to use this ability, which I don't understand why that adjustment was made. And I think it was really just to make room for the hover ability, which didn't really feel appropriate in this game. The movement is so fast that the hover ability is more of a death sentence than it is an advantage. So ultimately, I do feel that there was a lot of wasted potential in the pilot kits, and maybe in the Titan kits as well, but not as much. Those are actually more useful, and they're more fun to play around with and to experiment with. And just to touch on the Titans themselves really quickly, we only had the same two Titans. We had Ion and Scorch, which both were extremely fun to play with, but they did not feel similar enough to the original Titans. They didn't feel like they made that much of an impact. Taking down a Titan is significantly harder than in the original because it doesn't allow you to stay on the Titan for an extended period of time. You have to hop on, take the battery out, jump off. You're forced to jump off. You jump back on, and then you have to throw like 3, 4, 5 grenades into the Titan before it finally explodes. And there are other ways to be able to damage a Titan, of course, and these are usually the most effective because the Titans don't have much in terms of defense, especially since they changed how the electric smoke grenade works. That is no longer a part of a Titan kit, that is part of the pilot kit as ordnance. As I mentioned earlier, they only added one new map to this one, so I'm just going to go over my thoughts on the maps. Homestead was not really that fun when it came to Titan gameplay. Now, when it came to pilot versus pilots, Homestead was actually pretty fun because you had certain areas for sniping, you had areas for close quarters, and areas for mid-range combat, and that played out pretty well. If you wanted to snipe, you had the chance to be able to run out into the open field and then just kind of crouch behind a rock and try to pick people off from a distance. However, in Bounty Hunt or in Hardpoint, Hardpoint. They did have that on Hardpoint. This map does not play out as well. I think what they were going for was have the open fields for the Titans so that they can play around in, and have all the buildings for the pilots. However, what they failed to realize for some reason is that when Titans are out, pilots are usually nearby them, so they're not going to be in the buildings at the same time. This really kills the pace of the gameplay for these game modes, because when you, especially in a hard point, where you have 1 point in each building and then 1 point at the tower, point B is going to be swamped with Titans the entire time you're playing that game. And then the rest of the time during that match, it's just going to be pilots jumping from point A to point C, trying to kill each other and gain both points rather than sacrificing one or just holding two. So while it, in that sense, you get a lot of different types of gameplay involved in one match, it just becomes extremely repetitive because sniping no longer becomes an option at all, which is the exact opposite problem in the game type Bounty Hunt, where where all of the AI drop into open fields. So as a pilot, you're either trying to pick them off from a distance in relative safety of the buildings, or you're dropping your Titan down right in the middle of them and trying to destroy everything. And what this really does is this causes people to do long distance battles when they don't have a Titan, so they can try to snipe AI and snipe any enemy pilots that might be out in the open. But when they have a Titan, they immediately go right into the clearings of the fields. The reason that this is an issue for this specific game type is that anyone that's in those fields is pretty much instantly dead. They might have a chance to be able to knock out some AI and kill some people before they're dead, but they are dead regardless. Very rarely will someone be able to escape the field without getting sniped or hit or picked off from afar. Now on to Boomtown. I really liked Boomtown as a map. It was just open enough that you could fit Titans through pretty much anything. It was closed just enough that close quarters combat was not negated, mid-range combat was not negated, and long-range combat with sniper rifles was actually useful, and you could use all of them at the exact same time in your team and still come out ahead and potentially win and make a fair fight. The only real problem I have with Boomtown is the fact that it's very flat. There's not much verticality to this level. There are two spots. There's the underpass for the bridge, well, I guess overpass, and then there is the large building right next to it where snipers will like to perch. There's also the other building on the other side across from that tower where you can counter snipe. However, that is it. That is the only verticality to this level, and it makes the gameplay uncreative, I will say. In the original Titanfall, I remember that there were a lot of maps that had extreme verticality involved in them because wall running and the whole parkour aspect was new to the genre, at least as far as a first-person shooter, multiplayer first-person shooter, and they really wanted to accentuate that fact, and it really feels like in Titanfall 2 they just kind of honed that back a little bit. They didn't want to make that the prime focus, and it really doesn't feel like they wanted to make the Titans the prime focus either. I don't know what they want to make the prime focus at all, actually, and that's kind of why I'm not that excited about Titanfall 2 right now. But before I go into that, I'm going to go over the last map. That was Forward Base Kodai, and that one I really did enjoy. That one felt more like an original Titanfall map. Again, there were open spaces, there were closed spaces. The only thing that did get me, though, was that the entire perimeter of the map was completely open, with the exception of the two main bases. And aside from that, honestly, the map was very fun to play. The only other gripe I have is that if you were not using a grappling hook, you were not doing anything at all on that map, and it shows very easily, especially in games like Bounty Hunt or in Hardpoint. In Pilot versus Pilot, it doesn't show as much. However, if you go outside and you are not prepared to dodge a sniper, you will probably end up dead, which is fine because there is plenty to do inside the bases, and there are plenty of people to attack as well. On Hardpoint, all of the points are inside relatively. There's one at each base, and again, one inside the main base. So there's tons of cover, and it forces the pilots to get out of their Titans to actually be able to take over these points. In Bounty Hunt, this one was a little bit better developed, I think. I think they had a lot better foresight in terms of this specific map, because there are multiple spots on the perimeter of Kodai that are completely open, and then there's about 2 or 3 spots within the main base that are not open at all, which will force pilots to get out of their Titans or to come inside to actually get the points. So in the end, I felt Kodai was a very well-made map. I have a couple gripes, but nothing major. So the reason I'm not that excited about the release of Titanfall 2 right now, though, is because of the grind that it currently has. And this grind isn't just, specific to Titanfall 2. It's predominant in a lot of first-person shooters, and dare I say just a lot of video games at the moment, and it's really sad to see. But once you hit the level cap and you don't have anything else to unlock, and you've tried a little bit of everything, and you think you have a decent idea of the game, it kind of loses its flavor a little bit, because now you're just going through the motions. You realize some of the flaws that are coming out. The spawning system isn't perfect, but the spawning system in every game is pretty much just off a little bit, at least, if you're doing a great job. But you also tend to notice the complete lack of counterplay that's involved. especially in game modes like Hardpoint or Pilots versus Pilots, because there is no weapon that can outperform any other weapon, really, but it's all completely situational. The problem with this, though, is that the spawning system doesn't always help you in that regard. While you may think that you are temporarily safe in your spawn, you might not actually be safe in your spawn. You could spawn, turn around a corner, and then get completely decimated by someone you didn't even know was there, and they're carrying a massive shotgun. That's not good. Yes, you can argue that plenty of games have this, like Call of Duty. I'm not a fan of Call of Duty for that exact reason. I would much rather have fixed spawns than to have that kind of randomness and to allow that kind of RNG to even possibly be played against me. I would much rather have someone spawn trap me and then I lose, but that is just me. I know not everyone feels that way. That is my opinion. Take it as you will. The next thing that I consider a flaw, other people might not because it's their flavor of game, is how twitchy the gameplay actually is once you've learned a little bit of everything. There's a lack of counterplay. It doesn't come down to who outplayed who, it comes down to who saw who first, who pulled the trigger first. Yes, you can argue this is more realistic, and that is fine, but I am not playing the video game for realism. It is Titanfall. We have giant mechs, we have grappling hooks, we have blades that have sonar pulse. I'm not going to argue the merits of realistic shooters. So, at the end of it, when there is nothing left to unlock, I personally felt the game was a little bit stale. There was not much to go with to keep me coming back, aside from that unlock system, and that's not just something, like I said, that is exclusive to Titanfall 2. That is predominant in a lot of video games today, and I kind of think it's a problem, but that's going to be something for another day entirely. And so I don't think that I'm going to be picking up Titanfall 2 on launch day. Now, if Respawn decides that they're going to launch a second round of tests, which I honestly think that they will, because they got a lot of feedback from the alphas, quote-unquote alphas, and I feel that they want to proceed. A good idea would be to proceed with another round of testing. I mean, a lot of people are calling for a delay so that they can fix a lot of the issues with the game. And that's not to discredit anyone who's actually enjoying the game. If you enjoy the game, please buy and play the game. That is why they made it, so that you would enjoy it. I personally do not think I will be buying it. However, like I said, if they release another round of testing, I will be more than glad to go ahead and jump in and give it another shot. I hope you guys found this information helpful. It's just my opinion. Just so you know, it's okay to like the game and it's okay to argue and disagree with me. But if you did find it informative, helpful, or at least entertaining, please hit the thumbs up button. It helps out more than you actually know. Please let me know what you think of the tech test and your feelings on Titanfall 2 in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.